Hello and welcome to the Construction Record Podcast. I'm digital media editor Warren Frey. On this episode, I have two interviews. The first with BC Building Trades Executive Director Brynn Bourke, and the second with British Columbia Construction Association President Chris Atchison. Both Brynn and Chris make the case for immigration as an important way to address an ongoing and worsening labor shortage, but point out that an out-of-date system and other roadblocks are keeping BC construction from getting the skilled workers they need. Here's my first interview with Brynn Bourke. Enjoy. We're talking today about temporary foreign workers, immigration, how that sort of impacts the labor crisis we're undergoing. You or your organization have put out a sort of a research paper about that. So maybe you could explain what the research paper is and what its conclusions are.
Yeah, thanks, Warren. So we have been hearing a lot over the last few years about the skilled trade shortage that we're expecting. And so what we wanted to do was look at, what is that shortage going to be over the next 10 years? How many tradespeople do we need? Where are they going to come from, both domestically and internationally? And then looking at those streams, right? If we are drawing folks from outside of Canada, how are they coming in? So that's the paper that we published today. Mm-hmm. And it does identify that we're going to need 52,000 construction workers over the next 10 years, and 30% of those folks are going to come from outside of Canada. And there are two sort of key ways that people enter our country. One is through, permanent immigration streams or economic class streams, and the other is through temporary streams, like the temporary foreign worker program. And right now, very, very few construction workers are actually entering Canada and British Columbia through immigration streams, and many more are coming through temporary streams like the temporary foreign worker program. And that our report explores that.
You say many more, but another thing you've mentioned is that there aren't enough. Like that there's of the quote unquote many more, there's not that many coming in that when we still need them.
Yeah. So what we identified is that we need 30% of 52 to come from outside of the country, and yet we have programs. So maybe I'll go a bit more into detail on the immigration program side. So, in Canada, there are 4 economic immigration classes that pertain to construction workers. So not family class, not refugee class, 4 economic classes. And they are the Federal Skilled Worker Program, the Canadian Experience class, the Provincial Nominee Program, which is administered by the province of British Columbia. And then they even created a Federal Skilled Trades program for tradespeople to enter the country. Across all of those 4 streams, only about 7,000 construction workers have gained entry in the last 5 years. And the program that was designed to bring in construction workers through permanent immigration pathways, the Federal Skilled Trades program, brought in less than 50 construction workers to Canada on average. At that same time, so clearly those immigration pathways are not working. At the same time, we're bringing in more than 7,100 temporary foreign workers to our country. And it's a much more precarious pathway that is actually not going to solve our labor shortage in the short or long term.
And I know you're concerned about the BC aspect of this, obviously, which of course you should be. But the federal government is what decides this eventually. And is this a problem across the country, or is it that other provinces get preferential treatment? Preferential is maybe not a fair way to put it, but because there's more people there, or more industry there, or more industry that wants, foreign workers, they end up getting the bulk of them, or is it just systemically a problem?
It's systemically a problem on the immigration pathway side. So our immigration system is fairly old, and historically has been geared towards folks who have university degrees. It undervalues trade certification and apprenticeships, and with the way that the point system is structured around education level, language proficiency, that it's very challenging for construction workers to get enough points to qualify to enter the country through a permanent immigration stream. That problem is common across the country. What is disproportionate in British Columbia is the percentage of temporary foreign workers who are coming in to construction to BC. Right. And when we look at the top 11 trades and sort of who's coming into British Columbia to perform construction work, we see that 9% of concrete finishers are temporary foreign workers, right? And 6% of insulators are temporary foreign workers. Nearly 6% are carpenters. 2.5% sheet metal workers and iron workers, and that has a real impact on actually changing the local labor market. When you have about 10% of your concrete finishers are coming, or temporary foreign workers, contractors in BC who are employing British Columbians at market wages in BC are bidding against, companies that are bringing in temporary foreign workers, paying suppressed wages, and they have a competitive advantage. And we have construction companies that have actually made this part of their business model.
Mm-hmm. It sounds a lot like how universities would do the same thing with foreign students, where they became something they relied on rather than just bringing them in, but they would make extra money for them. Not quite the same situation, but it seems like similar dynamics are in play.
Well, definitely there's there is an economic incentive for companies to do this. What I also want to make clear with the paper is that we're doing this more and more. It's as if some aspects of construction, we're addicted to temporary foreign workers, and we're bringing in more and more and more temporary foreign workers to perform construction work, and yet that skilled trade shortage, it's not getting better, it's getting worse, right? And so it can be seen as a solution, and it is not, right? What we need is for companies in British Columbia to invest in apprenticeships here. If we need to bring in people from outside of Canada to help join our workforce, then those folks should come through permanent immigration pathways and have a permanent, path to citizenship. And then they should also be mentored, and they should also join our apprenticeship system, and they should also become Red Seal, tradespeople who are highly skilled and qualified and stay here. And that's the only way we're going to dig ourselves out of this skilled trade shortage in the long term, and make sure that we have the workforce that we know we need to build the housing and the infrastructure that British Columbians are depending on.
Now, I know you the building trades and the open shop sector disagree on a lot of things. Let's be honest about that. But it sounds like you kind of agree on this one, at least for the definite need for foreign workers.
I would say that we are flagging, flagging a need in the changing demographics of Canada. One that, we're not alone, that the healthcare sector has identified, other sectors have identified, that we're going to need to improve our immigration system, modernize it, and bring folks in to help us meet our labor challenges. But how and when we do that, I think, we have strong feelings about.
Right. Well, fair enough. Yeah, of course. And how much of this do you think is external to construction or even the economy? It's because I know with housing, there's been a whole thing where the federal government brought in a bunch of I think they was 500,000 immigrants, and then there was a backlash to that because people were like, well, we're going to put these people to live, right? And but then again, that affects you as well, right? Even though it has nothing to do with you, really, that's external political stuff that then affects how you, or the climate, I guess, of bringing immigrants in the first place. Do you find that there's a bit of a backlash even in the industry to immigration, or not?
I mean, I find that this can be a challenging topic to talk about because people have strong feelings. And one of the reasons I wanted to pull together this paper was to do a truly comprehensive analysis, like not pick one little piece of this, but say, like, let's just, how many people do we need? How are they entering the country? How is the system working? And then reflect upon that. And really try to do justice through just this one slice of a very complicated immigration and temporary foreign worker system that is very dynamic by industry, by province, across the country. So that was sort of the goal, was to take some of the drama out of it and really just lay the facts.
And just in terms of changing this, I mean, you can't do it by yourself, obviously, and the federal government has to be the final arbiter of this stuff. But in terms of getting them to sort of turn this super tanker that's been a certain way for 50, 60 odd years around, how do you go about, what do you do in terms of lobbying or in terms of advocacy?
Well, we're really clear about, where we see the solutions, right? First and foremost, we have to hit pause on, a temporary foreign worker program and the international mobility program, which have clearly been working on overdrive and disproportionately so in British Columbia. And the report goes into many statistics about that. At the same time, what we need to do is improve those permanent immigration pathways, right? And take programs like the federal skilled trades program and make them actually work so that we're able to bring in skilled trades workers and have their trade credentials recognized and respected, for the quality that they are. And then work with the provincial government on the provincial nominee program. Very few construction workers are coming in through that stream right now, and yet we need them. So, trying to use this paper to have a conversation with multiple levels of government about how they can recalibrate the system to better address the challenges we're having in construction.
And I guess finally, so you have a whole paper people can read on their own if they want to. Where do they go to get it?
The BC Building Trades website, www.bcbuildingtrades.org.
Okay, great. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Warren.
And up next, here's my interview with Chris Atchison. And so, Chris, the first thing I'd like to ask you is, have you seen progress in terms of the government streamlining to get more skilled tradespeople into Canada and specifically into BC? I know you guys have been working at that, but how much progress have you seen?
Yeah, it's a wonderful question, because I think on the surface, we're seeing both the provincial government and the federal government telegraph some messaging that is saying that they're aware of this issue and they're trying to do the right thing. But moving a system like IRCC is a little bit more problematic than just making an announcement. And so, I'll say the BC's a new provincial nominee program that offers a priority stream in the trades is absolutely a step in the right direction. It was launched in December. It has monthly draws. It's based on job offers. And candidates have to be registered with Skilled Trades BC or have valid Skilled Trades BC certificates and a job offer. So it's been used to transition people who are already here, which is good. If they're here on a work permit, that will really work well for those people who are targeted with the trades. And similarly, just around this time last year, the federal government announced the category-based draws for skilled trades as well. And they've invited about 2,500 candidates last August, I believe it was, an additional 1,000 in December. The challenge with both these programs isn't that their intentions are good and the messaging is good, that we're starting to pay attention to the needs of the skilled trades. But largely, these programs are going to be effective for people who are already here. This lies the crux of the problem. So the messaging to Canadians is that we're starting to prioritize skilled trades. But on the reality that we're seeing is that we're not attracting new Canadians. We're not attracting new immigrants. In order to meet the skilled shortages that we have, we need to be attracting people from other countries with the skills that we want, and they want to come to Canada on a regular basis. And as soon as we start announcing programs and only focusing on those that are here, it has the potential of drying up the pipeline of people that we need. I mean, this isn't just a Canadian issue. This is a global competition for skilled trades talent. And any time that we're not continuing to kind of prime that pump with people who want to come and bring their skills to Canada, we face losing them in any trade and occupation, but it's especially with the skilled trades. They're going to places where their skills are in demand, and their countries and their jurisdictions, like their provinces, would have things lined up to open the welcome mat for them and make it easy. We're still not making it easy for new Canadians.
One of the things in the previous interview to this, Brynn Bourke of the BC Building Trades mentioned, and I think she's right about this, that the system we have is pretty antiquated. It's kind of set up for conditions that don't exist anymore. So what improvements would you make to that? If you could wave a magic wand and say, hey, can we improve this, and this to make it a 2024 immigration system, what would you do in terms of construction?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things. And so first of all, the three ways to come to Canada as a skilled tradesperson is you've got to be tied to an employer, and it puts the onus on the employer to lead the immigration process and recruit a newcomer and bring them into Canada sight unseen. And that process is expensive and cumbersome and long. Now, the other way is that somebody can be in Canada and then have their credentials recognized. So it's also people who have gone through that process of of coming to Canada already. It's expensive still to get here and then go through that process. So I think in that middle band, there's room that we can work on. And finally, I think it's a temporary foreign workers program, and it ties the worker to a single employer. This isn't feasible or practical given the nature of the construction industry. It makes both parties vulnerable. And neither has the stability of a worker benefiting from settlement services and other government services that would be commonplace in the form of a newcomer coming to Canada. But one of the things that could be done, first of all, is that credentials could be recognized before they come to Canada. Like there needs to be a way to recognize somebody's skilled trades, to give them some sort of certainty about where their qualifications line up with the skilled trades occupations in Canada and in British Columbia. So people shouldn't have to come here and then be frustrated by a system. And we do some of this work with our Integrating Newcomers program, where we'll kind of set the expectations. We're managing expectations for engineers and architects who are coming and tell them who the regulatory bodies are. But the skilled trades equivalent don't have that same opportunity to have their credentials recognized before they land. So a lot of people are then coming here and just sort of giving up on the opportunities that they otherwise might have passion about. The other piece, I think, is that we've got employers now that are stepping up because there's not the local talent or the regional talent or provincial or national talent. They're being forced into these situations of having to fill out these LMIAs and petition the federal government as a means to bring new workers in. And I would say, and that happens both for the immigration side as well, where there needs to be an attachment to an employer. And I would say that there's probably that's an antiquated way of looking at it. When we've got a labor shortage that every expert is predicting isn't going away in our lifetime, we're going to have the need for skilled Canadians to come in, and whether they come in as temporary foreign workers or they come in as permanent residents. By the way, our preference is that every person that comes to Canada comes in with a pathway to permanent residency. We want new Canadians. Temporary foreign workers are a short term. They will help in emergency situations. But when we see employers, good employers in our communities, feeling desperate enough that they're not able to access local, provincial, and national talent, that they need to look at this. This is outside of their comfort zone to have to make these petitions to get temporary foreign workers. They don't want to have to do this. So it would be much easier if the provincial and federal governments would look at organizations that represent the employers and say, hey, can you provide certainty that these people are going to be working when they're here? We can make sure that the employers then have things like builders code training or have more than a bystander training, that they're not preventing old practices on job sites that would permit bullying, harassment, and hazing. There is a quality control measure that could be built in with the associations. And meanwhile, you're serving the entire needs of a network of employers, not just those who can figure out the immigration system or figure out the temporary foreign worker application process. It's not for the faint of heart. You have to have deep pockets and a lot of patience to do it. And really, we know the lifeblood of our industry is the small and medium employers. So why don't we build a system that better serves them with the realities of the workplace, getting away from temporary foreign workers and building a pipeline of skilled newcomers that will really serve the interests of Canada, British Columbia, the local economy, and really those families who desperately want to come to Canada but currently don't have the means.
Now, just on a global scale, there's been a pushback to immigration, whether it's legitimate or not, and Canada has always been a lot less of that. Like we've always been big enough and multicultural enough for that. But have you seen any sort of threads of that, of people pushing back on, or just generally in the industry is like, no, please bring people in?
Yeah, it's all positive when it comes to immigration, and the employers that we talk to, the employers on our boards. They are really just in favor of making a system that makes sense for newcomers to arrive with the skills that we need to help build Canada and British Columbia. So there has been, it's really refreshing to see, to know what we see in other parts of the world, and know that in our part of the world, our doors are open. We just need to, I should say we have doors that want to be open to newcomers and in occasion temporary foreign workers. They're not taking the jobs of anybody who everyone here who wants to work is working.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of opportunities. I think the sophistication of our employers, the level of education and awareness that our employers have to the changing demographic and the needs of those workforce are advanced in our area of the world, and still room for improvement, but we're getting better. But definitely no negative backlash that we're seeing from our membership and from around the province. So it's really encouraging that we remain that beacon. We just need to build a system that means that we've got that landing place for people that we desperately want and need.
And finally, second to finally, this is a federal process at the end of the day, which means as an association, you're, I don't know if competing is the right word, but you are interacting with other provinces who may also want these workers, Ontario and Quebec specifically, and Quebec's got its own immigration set up to begin with. So how much of a challenge is that to going, now we would also like these people to be here as opposed to Ontario. I'm not picking on Ontario, but it's just the biggest population center.
Yeah, it's a wonderful question. I could spend a day talking about this, Warren, but as part of our Integrating Newcomers program, it is the only program in Canada, and it serves all of Canada, but its primary focus is British Columbia. But part of our responsibility is to take lessons from that program and to feed that experience back up to the Canadian Construction Association and share where the roadblocks are with our counterparts. We know that the labor market in Canada needs to be and should be mobile. And so the more Canadians that we can bring in to British Columbia and to Ontario or to Prince Edward Island, the chances of them then again being mobile are there, right? We need a workforce to be able to go where the work is. And so we really build on our experience. We talk to our colleagues in other parts of the country, and we do want to influence IRCC to build a better system that's, in fact, thinking of skilled tradespeople rather than just thinking of, that professional designation that seems to get all the cachet and all the points. And it is important, and we need engineers and architects and doctors and medical professionals. We need them, but we also need skilled trades workers. So to the extent that we can draw on the experience of our Integrating Newcomers and the experience that is happening in other provinces, we're all feeding into our partners at the Canadian Construction Association who can help us do the heavy lifting with Ottawa and the IRCC.
And I guess my actual final question is, you've mentioned a couple of the resources you have. Could you point people in the direction of them if they're looking to hire immigrants to work in their companies?
Yeah, so on our website, BCCA.com, we have our resources to all of our workforce development programs, and the Integrating Newcomers program will be listed there. One thing I will mention, we've just created another resource for newcomers when they land on how to work in Canada with Indigenous reconciliation as well. It's kind of an aspect of settlement that we might take for granted sometimes with newcomers coming to British Columbia, but we thought in addition to knowing how to work with Canadian employers, you need to kind of understand how Canada is dealing with truth and reconciliation and some of the nuances around the rights of Indigenous people as well, and how that's being reflected in the workplace. So some really good resources for employers and really good resources for newcomers as well.
Okay, great. Thanks for joining us today, Chris.
Thanks a lot, Warren.
Thanks for listening to the Construction Record Podcast. You can hear us on Apple Music, Amazon, and Spotify, as well as at theconstructionrecord.libsyn.com and on the Daily Commercial News and Journal of Commerce websites. Thanks again for listening.